This is our friend Courtney from Biblical Apologetics. I've done one of her videos before, and I saw she had this. It's actually two videos. I'll link them both down below on Genesis 3:15 explained, and she's refuting Rabbi Tovia Singer. So two points of view are being offered here. One would be Rabbi Singer's, which full disclosure, right there's Let's Get Biblical Volumes 1 and 2 by Rabbi Singer. I like the guy. Um, and Courtney's position is, of course, going to be I don't want to say Christian. She's not mainstream Christian. She follows Jesus. She's a Torah observant or a messianic, Hebrew roots, that kind of thing. Um, Without labeling her specifically, that gives you the genre because I'm not sure which one she goes by specifically, but Courtney's a wonderful person. I got to meet her at Rabbi Singer's debate in Nashville, and we had a good time there. It was nice to get to meet her, and we're going to take a look at this video and compare their points of view here, and I'm going to offer a third one, which would be mine.
Welcome, everyone, and welcome back to another installment of Smashing Strawmans with me, Courtney from Biblical Apologetics.
I like that I gotta say, I like that smashing straw mans because when I think about it, it should be smashing straw men, but then it's straw man argument. So is it straw mans? I like that. I don't know. Which one should it be?
So today's video, we are going to discuss Genesis 3, verse 15, and Tovia Singer's problem with Genesis 3, verse 15, in conjunction with Christianity's stance on it. In this video, I will also put the proof for why our, i.e. the New Testament, i.e. mainstream Christianity even, or Torah observant Christians like myself's position is correct and his position is only half correct. So
You got half a point there. Did you see that?
let's get started.
The serpent here means either Satan or the evil inclination, something that is a seducer that seeks to seduce mankind away from HaKadosh Baruch.
Okay, so this is actually one of the places where I do agree with Tovia Singer. There's really only two interpretations of this passage.
I guess I'm out the window on that one.
So it's either the evil inclination of man or it's the actual entity or Hasatan, the figure, the adversary, which is a being that is represented in the text.
Call me crazy here. It might be a snake.
So this is actually a point that I agree with him on. There's really only two interpretations. I agree. So mainstream Judaism does not like to talk about duality, okay? They do affirm a dualistic point of view, although it differs slightly from the way that Christianity presents a dualistic understanding here. So no matter how you slice it, okay, this passage is saying that something is warring against God.
Disagree. Not no matter how you slice it. If you look at the Yetzer Hara, it's really in even who is Satan, which really means adversary. Who is he warring against? Is it us or is it God? It's not that, no matter how you slice it, it's about God. It could just be warring against us, our adversary. That's her view that it's warring against God. I don't think Rabbi Singer would agree with that Satan is warring against. In fact, I know he doesn't. I have his books up there. He does not agree that Satan is warring against God. He's warring against you.
It is either you, the evil inclination of man, your own evil inclination, and how did that get there? Why is it there? Or it's the dualistic Hasatan, the figure that wars against God. Either way, something is warring against God. Okay.
Now, she might be, and it could be that she's saying here that you are warring against God when you sin, and the evil inclination or Satan will lead you into sin. Um, is that warring against God? Sometimes sin is an accident. You're not at war with God, but it definitely from a I'm not sure what her beliefs are on original sin, but certainly from a standard Christian point of view, you are at war with God, and Judaism doesn't agree with that. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. So there's that.
I want to go right to your question. I want to get into the meat here because it's really, really juicy. Well, Christians claim through a monumental blunder, that in Genesis 3:15, because the term that's used here is your seed, referring to the woman's seed, given that a woman doesn't have seed, as in sperma, the Greek word, but she rather has an ovum, so that must mean a very unique kind of woman. And therefore it must be someone who was born a virgin.
Christians are well aware that seed implies descendants.
Is it in Isaiah 53 where the suffering servant, same word, Zara, that the suffering, same root word, let me be clear, that the suffering servant will have seed, descendants? Do Christians agree there? Because I don't think they do.
Or offspring. We don't think that seed implies literal sperm. We know how this works.
She's certainly right on this point here. It's not that the way Christians read it is not that like Mary has her own sperm. Obviously, Mary's impregnated by God. Christians don't tend to speculate on how that happened. Rather, they say that it happened, but they don't see her as having sperm.
We understand.
Did it? Because as it turns out in Genesis 3:15, I want you to look at the words here. Ve'evo oshis beincho uveino isha, and I will create hatred between you and the woman. Uvein zaracha uvein zara, and between your seed, the pronoun is the serpent seed, uvein zaro, and her seed. And women don't have seeds. Everybody knows biology.
I just want to point out real quick that both words were on the screen, and he said both words, Zara and Zarach. So both were on the screen, both were said, because the accusation here is that he's trying to cover that up, and I think it should be pointed out that he actually said and put both words on the screen.
This is complete chicanery. Meaning, in biblical Hebrew, the word zero in Tanakh doesn't mean the reproductive material.
If I can back that up, because I just want to make this clear.
Uvein zara, and between your seed, the pronoun is the serpent seed, uvein zaro, and her seed. And women don't have seeds. Everybody knows biology. This
See, I think that without knowing Hebrew, you can tell that these are two different words, can you not? This is different from that, right? Oh, you can't see my mouse on the screen. I'm sorry. You can tell that these are two different words, correct?
complete chicanery. Meaning, in biblical Hebrew, the word zero in Tanakh doesn't mean the reproductive material that comes from man, the seed, but it means offspring. Offspring.
Yeah, no chicanery going on from this end. Again, for the record, Christians are aware that women don't have sperm or, quote, seed, that we are the womb that carries the baby. We understand this in case it was thought that we didn't. We understand it. So no chicanery here. Let me explain why I really feel like I have to hammer this down, because this is the very definition of a straw man, okay? For those of you who don't know, a straw man is just what it sounds like, okay? Picture a straw man, a man dressed up in straw, okay? So if you are familiar with cornfields and you've got the scarecrow, it's like...
You can decide for yourself. I'm going to jump forward a little. You can decide for yourself if you think this is a straw man or not. This is, what she's presenting. That's up to you.
Do something else, okay? And I'm going to prove that right now. I'm fixing to prove
How do you know I'm telling you the truth?
He does. He's building this straw man and he tears it down and he's like, see? Easy. But really what this is, it's smoke and mirrors, and it's sleight of hand. It's, hey, let me distract you while I do something else, okay? And I'm going to prove that right now. I'm fixing to prove
How
that.
do you know I'm telling you the truth? Because you see it. In fact, if you go just a little further, in Genesis chapter 16, verse 10, an angel is speaking to Hagar. Hagar is being told about the birth of Yishmael. Vayomer lo malach Hashem. And the angel of Hashem said to her, who's her? It's Hagar, the mother of Yishmael. Harbo arve ezarech. I will greatly multiply your seed.
Okay, so this right here is what made me do this video. He is playing on your ignorance, and a great majority of his viewers don't speak Hebrew. And so problem number one. Problem number two, they basically worship the floor the man walks on, which is bad because,
How would you know whether the majority of his viewers speak Hebrew or not? I don't know. How would you know they worship him? I don't happen to know anybody who worships him, but
they often say that Christians are worshiping Jesus. Here's the problem. A lot of these ex-Christians have so much hatred built up that they literally traded one Jew to worship for another Jew.
now there's a legitimacy to the point that she made right there that a lot of the former Christians who are Noahides, I shouldn't say a lot, at least some of the former Christians who are Noahides have hatred built up towards Jesus. And I don't really understand that. Like, if you are a Noahide and you believe that now, like you formerly believed that Jesus was God, but now you believe he's just a man who died in the first century, what's there to hate? Like, he wasn't a bad guy. He might have taught some things you disagree with, but what's there to hate? Like, like, what is he, Hitler now? Like, what did Jesus do to you? I don't understand it. She's got a point there. I don't think her point that Noahides worship Rabbi Singer is valid. I think they respect it. I respect the guy, even though I disagree with him quite a bit. But I have a lot of respect for him. But worship, I'm not aware of any.
Okay, so love for the Jewish people is fine, but if you allow that love to get in the way of your critical thinking skills, there's a disconnect here. There's a disconnect. And so he takes...
Okay, let's be fair here, just for a second. We're talking about two human beings living in a garden with trees with magical fruits and a talking serpent. And does the serpent represent an angel or a devil, or is it just a snake? And we want to talk about our critical thinking skills at this point. Um, she believes that this is a prophecy of a virgin who's going to give birth in thousands of years, and that person is going to be half God, half man, and he's going to be put to death and then brought back to life. I mean, are we like, let's be honest here at the very least. Our critical thinking skills would rule out virgin births and resurrections and things like that. Otherwise, they wouldn't be miracles. I'm not saying this to mock anybody, okay? But she believes these things because she loves Jesus, because she has a relationship with Jesus. And so, yes, her critical thinking skills are set to the side because of her love for a Jewish man who she believes is Elohim, who she worships. I It's not folks. I'm not being critical of anybody here, okay? Critical thinking skills rule out 90% of these stories. They like critically thinking a resurrection, a virgin birth, a talking snake, trees with fruit that make you live forever or gain knowledge, or come on. Critical thinking skills will set this aside. You believe them because you have faith, and they wouldn't be significant if they weren't miraculous. If you could just critically think it through and come to the conclusion, it wouldn't be that great of a story, would it?
Takes you to Genesis 16 because he wants you to believe that it's the same word used there as is used in Genesis 3:15 in regards to the prophecy of a virgin birth. Okay? So here's the problem with that. It's not the same word. It's not the same Hebrew word at all.
True, but this is a distinction without a difference.
It has two totally different connotations. And if you can read Hebrew, you will see in my next slide. But he takes you to a female who is being spoken to, that she would have offspring. okay, that she would bring forth children. In other words, it can't possibly be that she also is a virgin. This is not what Zerah means. That's so erroneous that's one of those straw mans that he builds up. It's an erroneous argument. One, two, it's not even the same Hebrew word. And I'm going to demonstrate this.
First off, Zerah would have nothing to do with virginity, whether you're a virgin or not. Well, I guess it would because it's offspring, but the term doesn't imply, like, to say someone has offsprings would generally mean that they're not a virgin. So, but like, how would you use Zerah in a sense to say someone's a virgin? Like, they don't have Zerah, they don't have offspring. Like, you see the trap. She's like kind of walking herself into a trap here because, like, yes, the word Zerah would imply that you don't have offspring. The word Zerah doesn't mean virgin or not. It just means descendants. But if you have descendants, how are you a virgin? Right? So it would imply that you're not a virgin in both cases.
Stick with me. I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove this rabbi to be either flat out lying or grossly misunderstanding his own text. It's one of the two at this point. So, point number one, it's not the same word. Point number two, just because a prophecy speaks to a woman saying, hey, you're going to have descendants, you're going to have children, doesn't mean that it's the same point that us Christians are making whenever we look back at Genesis 3:15 and we say, look, this is the prophecy of a virgin birth. And I'm going to demonstrate that right now. Hebrew speakers, follow along with me. Hebrew reads from right to left.
Pause. So if you're at all familiar with Hebrew, look at your screen. You'll see the two words there. Are they not the same two words that were on the screen when Rabbi Singer was doing it? So, like, to sit here and say he's lying to you, I don't understand. He said the words out loud. They were printed on the screen. He certainly has a different interpretation. And at one point, he did say that. I believe he said that. Like, I'm not quoting here, but he said that the one where it's her seed or it's your seed, he says to the woman, and that is incorrect. But I don't think he's lying. He put it right on the screen and then said it in Hebrew. So
not left to right. So you see the big bold word, okay? That's Zerah, okay? There's two words to the right of that. The one in the middle, nope. The second one is the one I want you to focus on. Zerach, the k at the end. Now these words look similar, but they are very different and they have very different meanings. The first one that is not in bold means your seed, as in anyone that you speak to. That's male or female, okay? If you look at the big bold word, that is her seed, and that is the only time it is used in the Bible. So
let's clear this up. The first one is your seed, meaning second person. The second one is her seed, meaning third person. But in both cases, it's talking about a woman's, well, not here. The first one is the seed of the serpent. But the first word is the one used for Hagar in Genesis 16, and it's talking about the seed of a woman, right? He's speaking to a woman in the second person. So when you speak, you have first person, that's me, the speaker. Second person, you, the audience. Third person, Courtney here, for example, is the third person. We're speaking about her video. I'm the speaker, first person, speaking to you, the audience, second person. So in Genesis 16, you have God speaking directly to Hagar in the second person, whereas in Genesis 3, you have God speaking to the serpent about the woman in the third person. So yes, it's a slightly different word, like it's a different suffix, if it's a different ending on the word, but the root word Zerah is the same in both places, right? It's just that in Genesis 3, since God is speaking to the serpent about someone else, he has to say her seed because it's a woman. In Genesis 16, he's speaking to Hagar about her seed, but he says your seed because it's second person. It's not that he's saying a man's seed, right? There's no man there.
did you hear that? Well, depending on how you pronounce the vowels, zar, ach, etc., so on and so forth, that is absolutely not the same word mentioned in Genesis 3:15 when speaking to the woman there, okay? So I want you to understand what his position is. His position is, hey, look, Hagar is being spoken to, and she is being told that she's going to have descendants, okay? Zerah, their seed, there, see, da. And therefore that means that Genesis 3:15, when it speaks to a woman, it's not speaking of a virgin birth. But how flawed of a concept this is when you understand Hebrew. Also, how flawed of a concept this is when you understand that it is the only time in Genesis 3:15, literally the only occurrence throughout the entire Hebrew Bible, where the woman is directly told that her seed.
False. False. God is not speaking to the woman there. He doesn't directly tell her that her seed. In fact, the only place where God directly tells a woman that her seed is Hagar in Genesis 16. In Genesis 3, God is speaking to the serpent and he says her seed. He's not speaking to her. He doesn't tell her directly. He tells Hagar directly, hence second person. But here he's speaking to the serpent about Eve, hence third person.
The ending suffix, okay, the suffix meaning her, your, female, you.
Yes, that's the only place where that word is used. But I don't know, like, again, it's a distinction without a difference.
Her. Not just yours as in anyone, male, female, whatever, as in you're going to have descendants. Doesn't matter if you're speaking to a woman or speaking to a man. Like the seed of Abraham implies that a woman is involved. Why?
The seed of Abraham implies that a woman is involved, and the seed of Hagar implies that a man is involved, and the seed of the woman in Genesis, I mean, she's clearly interpreting it as Mary. I would interpret it as Eve, being as she is actually the woman involved. But it implies that a man is involved as well. Yes, seed, descendants implies that a man and a woman are involved. Yet somehow she's reading a virgin birth into Genesis 3:15. Yet when we get to Genesis 16, she really goes, well, there's got to be a man involved. Well, why does there have to be why can't Hagar have a virgin birth? Right? God says to Hagar, your seed. Hagar is a female. This is the seed of a woman. Why can't it be a virgin birth? Now, of course, we know in the story of Abraham that it's not a virgin birth because we get the story. Abraham sleeps with her, impregnates her, and she has a baby. In the case of Genesis, where the woman is there, presuming that the woman who is there is the woman being talked about. And by the by, she's the only woman on the planet, according to the story. So it's kind of hard to conclude there's some other woman being talked about. We know that that woman was impregnated by Adam. Again, no virgin birth. You have to read the Messiah into that verse, read it as being about a woman who's not only not there, but won't exist for thousands of years. And once you've read all that into the text, absolutely, it's got to be a virgin birth because that's the only place where that particular word is used. Well, yeah, it's the only place it's used because it's the only place in the Bible where a woman is spoken of in the third person as having seed. The other place where a woman is spoken of as having seed, it's spoken of in the second person, and that's why it's a different word. Let me clear this up. Take the Shema, right? Hear, O Israel, Hashem is our God, Eloheinu. That's our God, right? Hashem is one. You shall love Hashem, your God. Elohecha, two different words. Does it mean that there's two different gods? No, it's a different suffix to say our God versus your God. Same thing here with this word. She's making a lot of hay here where I don't think there's a lot of hay to be made. That being said, if you believe in the virgin birth, I would make the same hay she's making. I mean, you don't have a lot else.
Why? Because we house the child, okay? But this woman in Genesis 3:15 is not going to have a man involved. There's going to be no man involved. That's why it's called her seed, okay? And this has nothing to do with sperm. This has nothing to do with whatever his concept is that we think that the seed literally means the sperm. None of that. It has absolutely nothing to do with that.
Now you're trying to have this both ways because she says for Hagar to have a descendant implies that Abraham has to be involved. Well, that's kind of looking at the seed as if it's got to be planted, is it not? I mean, maybe not. Maybe she's just saying that descendants but again, if you're going to make the point with Hagar that her getting pregnant implies a man has to be involved, the same is true in Genesis 3, man. You cannot split that hair and have it both ways. You just can't.
What it is saying is very clear. Hey, her seed is going to be the seed that eventually will be the Messiah. That line. That is.
Okay, so here she just said it. what's being said here is very clear. I don't know how it's clear because it says Messiah isn't there, but she says eventually will be. So it doesn't seem like she's saying this is talking about Mary. And if this is not talking about Mary, then it's not talking about a virgin birth. If this is eventually, in other words, Eve's seed will eventually be the Messiah, which, by the way, I'd like to point out that rules out nobody who's ever lived. It could be literally anybody because we're all Eve's seed. But it's not talking about a virgin birth then. If it's Eve's seed, it's not talking about a virgin birth. If it's Mary's seed, then yeah, I get it's talking about a virgin birth in her view. It's just it's a confusing. Like we keep going back and forth. What are we saying here? How about a clear? This is what I would ask. And I don't think Courtney in the second video says she's not going to address this again. That's fine. But what would be nice to be clear? Who is being spoken of here when it says your seed? Is it Eve, the woman? And if so, how do we then get it to Jesus in a virgin birth? I don't understand because clearly her descendants are not all born of virgins, right? Adam and Eve have children, etc. I don't understand how she's splitting this hair and getting it both ways. I just don't. And maybe it's just me not properly understanding.
Is the promised Messiah found back in Genesis. Okay? And if you would speak to any other woman, you would say Zerach with a k at the back. Okay?
If you would speak to any other woman, if you were speaking directly to any woman, you would use the second person, your seed. But if you were speaking about the woman to someone else, you would always use her seed. Like, again, I feel like I don't know that Courtney is intentionally misleading here. I think that she honestly believes this, but it is a very misleading argument.
Okay? Not a as in a feminine female sound at the end. There is a difference. And if you know Hebrew, you know he is lying to you, making up something either to buy and sell to those who have no clue of Hebrew, or he literally doesn't know enough about his own Bible. And I don't think it's the second one. I don't think it's the second one.
I agree. Of course, it's not the second one. But I mean, I don't understand how he's lying when he used both words. He put both words on the screen. She uses both words. She puts both words on the screen. They just have two different interpretations. I have a third. I'm going to run over it really quickly here, folks. Guess what? It's a snake. How about that? It's a snake. Like, does this blow anybody's mind? Wait, Steve, how do you read a snake into that passage? Well, I have a different interpretive lens. Rabbi Singer's using the Talmud, she's using the New Testament, I'm using the Epic of Gilgamesh. And in the Epic of Gilgamesh, you have the same scenario with the snake. Gilgamesh finds the plant that makes you forever young, right? And as he's headed back, he stops to take a bath, and a snake comes along, eats the plant, sheds its skin, and slithers away, right? It's ideological, folks. This is like, how does a snake stay forever young? Well, the snake knows some way. This is why Adam and Eve talked to the snake, right? It's not a real talking snake because this is not a historical story in my view. But they talk to the snake about this because the snake knows about being young because he can just shed his skin and crawl away young again, right? So God has told them, hey, if you want to be forever young, you want to live forever, eat this tree of life. Don't eat that tree there because it will result in death. And the serpent says, not so fast. Easy yanking your chain. I eat from that tree all the time. It doesn't kill you. You know what it does? Makes you smarter. It makes you wiser. And it'll make you to be like a god. And just like in the Epic of Gilgamesh, when Enkidu is brought in by the woman and civilized, right? And then he has new knowledge. He's like a god. It's exactly what it says. The same thing is said in the Hebrew Bible. This is a retelling of that story from a Jewish perspective instead of a Mesopotamian perspective. I don't see any reason to believe there's something fanciful or magical about the serpent here. Any more than I believe that there was a particular and special tortoise or particular and special hare in the story of the tortoise and the hare. It's just a story designed to teach you a lesson. Now, you could accept my viewpoint and still hold on to Rabbi Singer's. It's the Yetzer Hara, or still hold on to Courtney's. It's the coming of the Messiah. I don't think you have to see this as a literally true historical story in order to get the Messiah or the Yetzer Hara out of it. Whatever conclusion you come to, God bless you. I'm not here to tell you you're right or you're wrong. Um, I'm just here to present my view and give it to you for your consideration, and you can let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up, share it on social media, subscribe to the channel, whatever you do, don't just sit there, do something.